Welcome back to Lesson 19 of the Bioptimizers, Healing Health and High Performance, your guide to complete biological optimization. And today, we're going to talk about 10 foods that you must avoid if you want to have super health. Boy, get that one out. Yeah. You know, food is such an emotional topic. I mean, there's so much emotional intensity about it, and there's a lot of things out there about do this diet or do this diet. But whatever diet you're selecting, what we can say is there's an incredible amount of evidence of these foods that you must avoid. So we're going to go to the 10 foods to avoid. That's what we're looking at. Like, nobody in whatever their methodology is are in this. And I'll give you a little tip that I learned a long time ago. Naturally, I got when I first started out, I was very locked into one way of doing things. And over the years, and thanks to the exposure to both my team members and other athletes and other medical doctors, is we're always learning. So stay flexible and stay open and start learning from a variety of things. And one of the things that changed my whole perspective in health was when I started to incorporating commonalities. So instead of looking at the differences between different diet strategies or food strategies or practices or people who were, preaching a certain doctrine, I looked at what were the similarities. And one thing we can find is that there's a lot of similarities here on foods you can avoid. The first one that you want to avoid at all costs is burnt food. Burnt food is horrible for your body. There's lots of research on this. You can check it out on the effects of burnt food long-term in your health. Cooked food is not the best for us, okay? I mean, I'm not here to slam cooked food, but we know that it's enzyme deficient. Burnt food just creates a whole cascade of problems inside your body that you do not want to deal with. So avoid burnt food. So if you're cooking your meats or whatever, and people want to burn them and everything, try and avoid that, and definitely stay away from cooking the marshmallows on the fire. I know it's kind of the thing in camp, and I did it and stuff, but they burn it all. Don't do that. That's not so good for you. Next thing we're going to go to is dyed food. Food that has colorings and agents, dyed foods. One of the interesting things is if you look at under a microscope at when they take fat cells off people, they look at liposuction, what we find in there is dyes. We find a few more things we're going to talk about, but we find dyes. Your body just isn't designed to take these dyes out of the food. And of course, we all know that certain times they have to put dyes inside our body if you're doing, various medical tests so they can see this on x-rays or MRIs or these type of things. But you want to get the dye out of your system. Dyed food. And also, I dealt with a lot of people in the hair industry, stylists that use a lot of dyes and stuff that get absorbed into their skin, and a lot of them have a variety of problems that we have to overcome. If you're one of those people, we can do that with the biological optimization program, the BioStack. So ask about us, email us on our website, and we'll share with you what you can do. The next thing you want to avoid, that's what avoid, is preservatives. Preservatives, these things, boy, man, I mean, in nature, everything kind of erodes or oxidizes or breaks down. And digestion is a form of controlled rotting, if you will, or controlled oxidization inside your stomach. It's accelerated with the stomach acids and enzymes and probiotics, and we need that in order to assimilate our foods. When you put preservatives on things, this slows down the process. It also interacts with our bacteria cultures and can throw off that terrain we talked about in the last lesson. This is a very, very big problem. So any of those things that you can't spell, and one thing I want to be clear about is if you're looking at supplements and nutrients and these things, get away from the ones that have the things like magnesium stearate and all these different chemicals. If you can't pronounce it, probably not that good for you. Okay? Most preservatives are that sort of thing, sodium base or that sort of stuff. So avoid those, because we'll find those, again, remember those people we found the fat cells? We took them out of the body and looked at them, had the dyes. Guess what else we found in there? Preservatives. And Dr. Horst Filch is a vascular surgeon. He told me, Wade, you definitely want to avoid preservatives if you can. The fourth one is GMOs. Genetically modified organisms, genetically modified foods. Okay, so that's, genetically modified, just so you understand that. This is a huge topic of debate in the world today. And we talk about how to identify genetically modified foods in an upcoming lesson about your PLU codes on foods if you're at the store, because sometimes I know in Canada we don't have the right to know if we've got genetically modified food. And this is a very, very touchy subject. There's a lot of money going into genetic modified foods right now, but what we do know is this. There's a recent study that came out that demonstrated, I think it was a Princeton University or one of the Ivy League schools. He had his son eat nothing but McDonald's, which was a high level of genetically modified foods inside of that food. So they make it taste things, they can make it do things, they make it look at different colors. That's why genetic modification is so popular from a marketing perspective. But he took all that food into himself, and after 10 days, guess what happened? You remember we talked about the 500 strains of probiotics in the last lesson? Well, he had 40% less probiotics inside of good bacteria in his body, or strains inside his body, than he had before the 10 days of nothing but genetically modified food. So, and they've also showed that a lot of chemicals and stuff can, take away or alter how the gut bacteria works, and that is a critical problem what people contribute to obesity and a variety of diseases and infection and things like that. Okay, the next thing we want to look at is hydrogenated fats. So when I was a kid, I remember they came out with, they've had all these things that said, oh, well, there's these, butter's bad for you, and then we want to go to margarine. Margarine had hydrogens, and hydrogenated means that on the fat chain they just add all these hydrogen, and it allows it to preserve longer. It changes the flavor and stuff like this. But hydrogenated fats inside your body, they contribute to a variety of conditions: obesity, heart disease, degeneration, excessive aging, and oxidization inside the body. You want to get these babies totally out of your diet. Anything that says hydrogenated or hydrogenized, so hydrogenized fats, hydrogenized foods, right? Stay away from those, okay? Not good at all. Another thing is you want to stay away from what we call simple sugars, particularly those found in sodas, right? Sodas with an S. There we go. Again, I apologize for my writing. Simple sugars are a real problem. First and foremost, they taste good. They're very addictive. I know that Coca-Cola, and not to take any shots at them, but they created a product that had no satiety index. In other words, you can drink as many as you want, and there's nothing in your brain that tells you to stop drinking this food. And with simple sugars, since our brain uses mostly sugar, what happens is it converts and goes into our brain very quickly, and there's a benefit. And our brain always wants energy. It always wants food. And what happens is we start getting hooked on sugars, and this leads to diabetes and weight gain. Can cause mood disorders. If you talk to Dr. Hawkins and what they did with psychoanalytical research, and they found that people that had high sugar diets had more incidence of schizophrenia and things like that. And they changed their sugar, and 25% of his clients were corrected just from eliminating simple sugars from their diet. So what are simple sugars? Things like, glucose is a big one. Anything that has corn syrup, those things. So there's like high fructose, which is a corn syrup derivative. Regular fructose is okay, like fructose that you find in an apple or in an orange in its natural state, it's fine. Fructose that's used inside of chocolate bars and candies and things like that, that's the kind of sugars or the high fructose that you want to avoid because of all the negative side effects, especially from obesity and heart disease and these type of things. Also for mood behaviors, and a lot of kids get really strung out when they're doing sugars. We all know that you give a kid sugar and he's wound up running all over the place because it's like a neurotoxin for their body. So sports drinks, a lot of sports drinks, believe it or not, have that, and energy drinks. So I have a big pet peeve about sodas, energy drinks, and sports drinks because with liquids, you get more faster. The digestive, it goes into the stream faster. These are a real problem, and I didn't know this when I was young. Here's another one we got to look at. That's alcohol. A lot of people, I'm going to get some flack on this because I know a lot of people like to have a few drinks. I mean, the reality is of all the drugs that have been out there, and we can put, we'll put this on top of, drugs as another side point because it is a drug. Alcohol and drugs. I mean, the reality is these things can be used in certain areas, but really for the most part, they are just a gateway into a whole lot of problems. And alcohol, if you look at the history, has caused more challenges than any other drug in the world. And it's legal. That's the funny part. It's legal. Obviously, you need to be of age to drink it or whatever. But this has caused a lot of problems, and most people have been influenced. Their lives have been, hurt or damaged because of the effects of abuse of alcohol and drugs, okay? And the other thing is another one we want to look at is on top of drugs, I'm going to put prescription drugs. I want to digress here for a second. Prescription drugs are great for dealing with a certain situation for a point. It's if you look at the physician's desk reference guide, and drugs are made to treat the symptoms. Doesn't treat the causes. It's to alleviate the symptoms. So if you're on prescription drugs or you're using prescription drugs, please recognize that these, over the long term, have horrible side effects. And there's some great websites out there. I think one's Renegade Pharmacist and talks about the long-term effects of using drugs. It's a great site. But also, almost every medical person will understand that you get what's called contraindications. Other drugs can lead to other drugs. And you take a prescription drug for a period of time, then you need another one to treat the side effects from that and that one, and all of a sudden you're on 10, 15 different medications that are all interacting and creating a cocktail that can be very damaging. I'm not here to say that drugs aren't something that are needed or used in certain areas under the medical supervision, but outside of that, things kind of go sideways. Now we're going to talk about another one that you really, really want to avoid, and that is pesticides. Pesticides. And you can also put on this, fungicides and herbicides. Fungicides, herbicides, pesticides, these type of things. Basically, these cause, how they work is this. They spray vegetables with a pesticide because what it does is it kills the bugs. And how it kills the bugs? It interrupts the enzyme activity of the bug. Remember we talked about in an early lesson, enzymes are important from everything from thinking to blinking. Well, these pesticides actually kill the enzymes in your body. They destroy enzymes in your body. They also destroy bacteria inside the body as well. So pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, these things do a variety of damage. We also find those stored in fat cells of people that take liposuction out. So if you're buying conventional food, conventionally grown food has herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides, and probably 25% of organics, that's about an estimation, have been sprayed with this stuff. These things are causing huge, huge problems in the population long term because, let's face it, okay, it's enough pesticides to kill a little bug, but how much of that do I need before it kills me? So, ways to deal around that is deal local, buy local foods or in your organic markets and that sort of thing. But on the next level is, one of the things that I use is I have a water machine that washes my vegetables with a specific type of water that will emulsify oil because those have oil-based pesticides. We'll talk about that in an upcoming lesson. But you want to get to this. And 10, I was going to say there's trans fats, which is another hydrogenated fat, like things that you find in the deep fat fryer. But 10 is going to be anything that makes you feel bad. And people go, what do you mean? Anything that makes you feel bad. And 10%. Well, the reality is this is the whole idea of this program is for you to eventually become the master authority on your own health. You have an incredible brain and an incredible body. All of the scientists in the world, all of the engineering in the world aren't able to duplicate that. You have a process of observing yourself. So what I would recommend is when you do that little journal we talked about tracking, is go over the day and see how your energy was. Check your food, after your food, before you ate, after you ate. Did you wake up in the morning groggy? Did you find that you had more irritable relationships with people in your environment that had challenges? Did you have concentration problems? Did you find that you felt bloated or tired after any food? These are what's called biofeedback indicators, and we talk about this in some of the other lessons about how to monitor yourself. But really get clear about foods that make you feel bad, that you don't feel good on. And sometimes you'll take a product that makes you feel good for like 30 minutes, like maybe sugar or caffeine, that you get a little rush, but then you notice a couple hours later you get a crash and you got to reach for it. Rest assured, and I'm going to refer to you a book. There's a book called Salt, Fat, Sugar by Michael Moss. I highly, highly recommend this book, Salt, Fat, Sugar by Michael Moss. And it talks about how modern food manufacturers are, using genetic manipulation to kind of hook you on all of these things, to get inside your brain and start making you want more and more of their product and staying addicted to it, even though that you might be feeling bad. So to understand this, I think it's a great book to refer to and read. So just by knowing what's going on, you become much more aware and you start to trust your own judgment. And that's what we hope for you to do today. So there's the top 10 things to avoid. All of those things, make a list of them. Look at your lifestyle and say, hey, let's just take one of these and knock it off, or at least reduce it. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody's going to stop drinking or having a glass of wine here and there, but maybe slow it down. Maybe cut out some sodas out of your diet, or look on the cereal box and say, you know what, instead of having a sugary cereal, I'm going to have a nice protein shake. Okay? Instead of, having burnt food, I'm going to have a salad instead, or these type of things. And if any have those weird colors on it, stay away from those. So I hope today's lesson was a little bit of give you a few clues or hints of things that you want to avoid. And again, always be sure to trust your own judgment, be an authority for yourself. That's a big part of this process, because when you get to the end of this, you're going to have a working knowledge and an experience-based reality that's going to allow you to really have a lot of confidence about the foods that you select and how they make you feel. So we'll see you tomorrow on the next lesson coming right up. Happy to have you along. Stay with it.